Good morning, welcome.
Good morning.
My name's Jeff White, and I'm a member of the board here, and I serve on the board of directors. I want to thank everybody for being here this morning and extend a special welcome to any visitors. If you'd like to have some more information about the fellowship, please visit the welcome table in the fireside room, or you can sign our virtual guest book at uufames.org/guestbook. And whether you're joining us today from home or here in Fellowship Hall, we invite you to stay after the service for Coffee Fellowship, where you can introduce yourself and join in conversation with kindred spirits. A few announcements. Deb Klein's Soul Collage art has graced our walls for about a month now. If you haven't had a chance to take a closer look, we invite you to take the time to do so and check out her upcoming workshops celebrating the healing power of the arts. A poster is on the bulletin board as you exit the Fellowship Hall, or you can check out the gallery page on our website. Next Sunday, September the 8th, we'll celebrate our beloved community coming together to start another program year. Everyone is invited to wear their best Sunday going to meeting hats to join in the festive spirit. And if you collected water from your travels or elsewhere, we'll also celebrate Water Communion next week, so be sure to bring your water. You got those vials, a couple of months ago. And lastly, we're just a couple of weeks away from Ames Pride Fest, and we want everyone to enjoy in the celebration. The Downtown Festival is Saturday, September 14th, and we're looking for volunteers to staff our booth and share our welcome with the community. Sign up with Jamie. And on Sunday, September 15th, we'll join a number of other area churches for community pride worship at the ISU Memorial Union. Be sure to join us there or catch the service online. So, on behalf of this caring and nurturing congregation, I welcome each and every one of you to this sacred space. Here we invite you to an experience of transformation, hope, renewal, and connections, which may inspire you to understand life in new ways. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Jeff.
Early each day to the steps of St. Paul's, the little old bird woman comes. In her own special way to the people she calls, come, buy my bags full of crumbs. Come feed the little birds, show them you care, and you'll be glad if you do. Their young ones are hungry, their nests are so bare, all it takes is tuppence from you. Feed the birds, tuppence a bag, tuppence, tuppence, tuppence a bag. Feed the birds, that's what she cries, while overhead her birds fill the skies. All around the cathedral, the saints and apostles look down as she sells her wares. Although you can't see it, you know they are smiling each
Thank you so much, Madison. We gather this morning on the brink of a new congregational year. Some of us come fresh from summer adventures, from wind and waves and sunshine. Some of us come broken down from summer losses, from tears and pain and heartache. Some of us come renewed from summer rest, from peace and solitude and contemplation. Some of us come wearied from summer monotony, from work and heat and sameness. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever gifts and needs you bring, you are welcome here.
If you will join me in the words for lighting our chalice, on the cusp of a new experience, let us light our chalice as we say together the mission of our shared ministry. At the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Ames, we are growing spiritually, creating community, striving for justice, and learning to love. On this Labor Day weekend, we're going to sing a couple of old-time labor songs, and we'll start with As We Come Marching, Marching. That's number 109 in your gray hymnal, and the words will appear up here, of course. Please stand as you are willing and able. Thank you. Please be seated. So now is a time for all ages, any young or young at heart who wish to come crawl up to our blue carpet in the front, I've got a little bit of a story to tell you today. Back in the day. Have you ever heard any grown-ups in your life say, back in the day? When they started to tell a story, back in my day, it's on PBS Kids sometimes they say that. Well, it's really another way of saying once upon a time. Back in the day is once upon a time. And back in the day, and also now, sometimes, people who owned big businesses, great big businesses, could make the people who worked for them work too much, too long, and sometimes work where it was not safe, and not pay them very fairly for their work. It was not fair. And sometimes little kids had to work too. Can you believe it? Little kids, long hours, and not safe. Does that seem fair to you?
No.
No. Okay, if you see something that's not fair, what do?
Say, hey, that's not fair, you need to change.
Hey, so you say, hey, that's not fair, and you need to change. Okay, I want you to say, when I say, just you, Claire, okay, just you. When I say, no fair, I want you to say no fair. Okay, loud. Okay.
No fair.
Can you say it loud?
No fair.
No fair, all right. Now, do you think it's better for one person to say no fair, or for all of you to say it together?
All.
Okay, so now all of you say it together.
No fair.
Can you say it really loud?
No fair.
Pretty good. It's louder, right? What happens if we all say no fair really loud?
No fair.
Really loud on 3.
No fair.
Hey, somebody's got to listen if you say no fair, right? If a lot of people say no fair. That's what a union does. A union organizes a lot of people to say no fair, and now you'd better do something about it. That's a union. Well, back in the day, there was a woman named Fanny Sellens. That's Fanny. Fanny worked sewing clothes. She was a seamstress in New York City and then later in St. Louis. And she had to work really, really long hours, and she had to stay bent over her sewing machine. And she couldn't take any breaks to get up, and her back hurt, and she wanted to get up. But if she stopped looking at her sewing machine, she might get hurt. She might get her finger stuck in it, right? The places where she and the other women worked were called sweatshops. Can you imagine why they were called sweatshops?
Does it get really tired and sweaty?
Because you get really tired and sweaty. That's right. And sometimes they even locked the doors and people couldn't leave. I know. No fair. Exactly. Well, it was hot and sweaty and no relief. And so if anyone said, if a single person or just a couple of people said no fair, they would get fired. They would lose their job. But Fanny heard about seamstresses in other cities who were organizing to say no fair. And she started organizing the women in her factory. And in the book I read, it said, working at her machine, Fanny stitched together a dream. If women and girls in other cities could organize a union to improve their jobs, then they could do it in St. Louis too. And she wanted her children to be able to go to school, not work in a factory, right? To learn some things. So she started talking to other women and girls. They went, and if they went and asked their bosses for better pay and stronger working conditions, would it be better if they went alone, or just a couple of them, or a lot of them?
A lot.
A lot of them. So they got a lot of people together. And if the bosses didn't agree, then they would go on strike. Yes. Raise your arm. Yes, on strike. So what's a strike? A strike is when the workers say to the boss, no fair. And if you don't make it fair, then we're not going to work, and you're going to go out of business. Well, the bosses didn't like that, and it's really hard for the workers because they didn't get paid if they didn't work. And they had to be really strong and say, it's okay, we can go a little bit of time. We don't get paid because we were working for something more. Well, Fanny organized the workers, and they got better pay, And they got better conditions that they asked for because the bosses were scared of them to go on strike. And the bosses realized they had to be fair. They made it fair for everyone. Well, Fanny started going around the country and organizing other workers. She makes the workers very, very happy, and she made the bosses not very happy. And the end of her life was pretty sad. Oh, Fanny got thrown into jail one time. There you can see her in the jail. She got out of jail. The end of her life was pretty sad. She went to help out these miners who were digging coal out of the ground. Now, these men worked long and hard in really scary, rotten conditions so that people could heat their homes with coal. Coal is a kind of rock that can burn, right? Anyway, she was trying to make it better, and the people who owned the coal mine got really mad at her, and they hired men with guns, and one of them shot Fanny, and he killed her. It was really sad. She died doing the thing that she believed in the most, that she shouldn't have been killed for it, right? That was not fair. Thousands of people came to her funeral, and people remembered Fanny as someone who worked really hard to make things fair for everyone, especially children. Now, this is not just a story of back in the day, because today the labor union movement is alive and well, and it was really helped a lot by people like Fanny, and people are still working to make things for workers fair. So tomorrow is Labor Day, and we tell Fanny's story and those like it because what she did was important, and it's important for us to remember her and celebrate labor and the rights of workers. And so, as you go back to your seats, we're all going to chant the great labor chant. The people united will never be divided. 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 Yay! Thank you. That's you.
We will now give and receive the offering. Please know that this morning, half of the non-pledge offering will be donated to the Iowa UU Witness and Advocacy Network, or IUWAN. IUWAN connects and engages Iowa Unitarian Universalists in social action by building coalitions of UUs and partnerships with other groups and organizations. They advocate for policies of equity, fairness, and inclusion in our state. The other half of the offering will support programs here in our fellowship that make this a community of inspiration, transformation, and belonging. We'll pass the basket here in Fellowship Hall, but alternately for those at home or those here with a cell phone, you can go to uufames.org/give to make your contribution today. And if you're visiting today, please know that your presence here is gift enough.
Each week, when we gather, we take a few moments to recognize that our lives are connected one to another, that we hold a piece of each other's stories, and we share our joys and our sorrows because our joys are multiplied, sharing them together, and our burdens are lifted as we allow other people to hold our stories along with us. I just got a text of a joy. We celebrate today with Nancy Tepper. Her daughter Anne gave birth to Gemma Marie by C-section last night at 9 o'clock, and all are doing fine. Happy days and welcome, Gemma Marie. And I say a word of remembrance for people who died because of their labor, because of unfair working conditions, because of their fight for fairness, or whose bodies bear the scars of long work and poor conditions. I hold a moment for the people who made every garment that we're wearing in this space today, who made every piece of the transportation that took us to get here, for the people who grew and processed the food that we had for breakfast and will have the rest of this day, in the people who created the materials for this building and put it together. As you go through your day today and tomorrow, and not just now, but always, let us be mindful that this is truly the way that our lives are connected one to another. Let's take a moment of silence to recognize all these connections and how we are enriched by them.
When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
My name is Sarah Carlson, and this is my granddaughter Vivian Ginder, who's helping out today. We have some readings from activists, women activists in the labor movement. The reinvention of daily life means marching off the edge of our maps.
Every moment is an organizing opportunity. Every person is a potential activist. Every minute a chance to change the world.
I am no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I'm changing the things I cannot accept. Angela Davis, political activist, academic, and author.
Solidarity is what we want. We do not want to find fault with each other, but to solidify our forces and say to each other, we must be together, our masters are joined together, and we must do the same. Mother Jones, Irish American Union activist and leader and school teacher.
What we would like to do is change the world by crying unceasingly for the rights of the workers, of the poor, of the destitute. We can throw our pebble in the pond and be confident that its ever-widening circle will reach around the world. Dorothy Day journalist and co-founder of the Catholic Worker Movement and social activist.
Although it is true that only about 11% of American workers are in unions, that sets the standard across the board in salaries, benefits, and working conditions. If you are making a decent salary in a non-union company, you owe that to the unions. Molly Ivins, political columnist.
The interests of labor and people are one. Luisa Moreno, journalist and organizer of the American Federation of Labor.
We have the power to speak out for good wages, great benefits, fair scheduling, and equal pay for equal work. Liz Schuler, labor activist, current and first woman president of the AFL-CIO, representing 12.5 million working people.
Nothing will ever be won by waiting around. You've got to put your shoulder to the wheel to get ahead. Rose Pescata, Ukrainian immigrant and leader of the International Ladies Garment Workers Union.
I am sick at heart when I look into the social world and see women so willingly made a dupe to the beastly selfishness of man. Sarah Bagley, president of the Lowell Female Labor Reform Association. She advocated for a 10-hour workday. She later became the nation's first female telegraph operator.
Workers have the right to expect they won't be killed on their jobs. Dr. Eula Bingham, occupational health scientist and head of OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration under President Jimmy Carter.
The union taught me how to fight for what I needed and what I had, and if it was something I wanted, how to go after it. Hattie Canty, first black woman to lead the Culinary Workers Union. She held the longest strike in U.S. history, which lasted over 6 years.
Thank you, Sarah and Vivian. This is my Aunt Sadie Rosenberg. Actually, she's my husband Mike's aunt, the sister of his mother, Lena. But she was the only one of that generation still, of his family still living when we met. And Sadie and I became fast friends. This picture was probably taken sometime in the 1940s, and I imagine that she's off to a union meeting or to speak her mind to someone. She was always speaking her mind. We met in the 1990s, or as I heard someone say recently, the late 1900s. I know. Sadie was smart and astute with a biting wit, and she was ever curious about the world, and she never gave up her political passion. After the 1994 election, she chided my mother for not delivering Texas for that boy, by whom she meant Bill Clinton. Mike's family was a union family. His father, Saul, was a union organizer for United Electrical, Radio, and Machine Workers Union of America, better known as UE. One family story goes that when Saul called a strike on a UE shop floor, the police came to drag him away, and they were pulling Saul by one arm, and Sadie, all 4'10" of her, was pulling him by the other arm. And I still don't know who won that fight. I do know that those coppers must have been surprised by her strength, by her grit. This photo has hung for a long time in my office, and it will again soon in my office here. And I touch it when I go out to protest or to do a hard thing. Sadie's strength and her moxie and her belief in the power of working together inspire me today. So today, on this Sunday of Labor Day weekend, I want to take a look at the women in the American labor movement. You heard the story about Fanny Sellins, And you heard quotes by women who either led or continue to take leadership in unions. I want to say a word particularly about the songs that we're using today, Bread and Roses and Union Maid. The Reverend Dan Schatz, who's a UU minister and musician, says about these songs, as we come marching, marching, in our hymnal, gets dinged for ableist language. Nowadays, we try to be very careful about ableist language and who is able to participate in the meaning of the song. But Dan says, I think it's really important to keep in mind the context that they came from, which was actual picket lines and physical marches for workers' rights. And so when we use these songs, or songs from the civil rights movement that talk about marching or walking, or spirituals, which do the same thing, we can tell the story of their origins and put them in context. The songs are more than words set to music. They connect history and story, and in singing them, we connect ourselves to that story. As we come marching, marching, better known as Bread and Roses, is particularly instructive, especially the line, hearts starve as well as bodies. In 1910, garment workers in Chicago went on strike, and they were mostly women because women were seen as cheap labor. And the Women's Trade Union of Chicago led the way. Now, news accounts of the strike reported signs that said, we want bread and we want roses too. We want fair wages, but we also want and need to be treated with dignity. Suffragists picked up the phrase, and a poet named James Oppenheim wrote the words to the song that we now know as Bread and Roses. The song speaks of women, and this is a very important song in women's history, as well as in the history of organized labor, but we all of us need bread and roses. We need to be physically fed, but we need dignity and we need beauty. We need beauty in our lives. When I hear that line, Susan, I had your face in my mind, because we do believe in this. We need beauty as well. We need dignity. So give us bread, but give us roses. In Union Maid, which we'll sing in a little while, we have play on words, maid, M-A-I-D, and maid, M-A-D-E, right? We see a binary. We see in these songs that I'm talking about women, we see a binary of the sexes that, again, progressives sometimes try to move past today. And I think it's important that we do move past the binary when we can. But back in the day, there was women's work and there was men's work, and the discrimination that women faced was often very much gender-oriented. Some of you may remember teachers not being able to teach if they were pregnant and after they began to show if they were pregnant. My mother was a high school teacher when she was pregnant with my brother, and she talked about not being able to teach after a certain point because they might know what you did to get that way. Right? It was in Iowa, the Keokuk teachers' strike of 1970. Do you all know this story of the Keokuk teachers' strike? Keokuk, right? Keokuk, okay. I just learned about this. There's this wonderful Iowa labor history oral project. It's located at the University of Iowa. The ILHOP, the Iowa Labor History Oral Project, and they have a wonderful podcast, a several episode podcast about the Keokuk teachers' strike and what led up to it. Well, that strike in 1970 shocked Republican Governor Robert Ray and GOP minorities in both chambers into working on a public sector collective bargaining act, which was finally enacted in 1974. The teachers didn't They didn't show up to work wanting to be bargaining for collective rights. They wanted to teach their students, right? But some of the things that they faced, and some of the gender discrimination especially that women faced, meant that they all had to band together, the Keokuk Education Association, and they got the result they wanted. They hated strikes, and they knew Iowa did too. And so they went collectively and won this victory. My former boss, the Reverend Dr. David Breeden, writes this about his family. In 1935, a U.S. government truck pulled up to my grandfather's house, a two-room sharecropper's shack in which 16 people lived. They were starving to death, not malnutrition, starvation. The truck brought surplus food, which on that particular visit consisted of a gallon of mustard. My father was 11 years old at the time, and he and his sisters and brothers thus became the first generation of children raised on what came to be known as welfare. Now, I come from a long line of poor people, he says, part of what has come to be known as the incorrigible poor. That first delivery proved to be a harbinger of things to come. These were subsistence farmers. They'd never seen mustard. They thought it must be what rich folks ate, and so they ate it. And it made them incredibly ill, and so they decided the government was trying to poison them. He continues, unions work because they go to the root of the poverty problem. Instead of handing out gallon jars of mustard, they help human beings get paid fairly for a day's work. Now, between, let's see, I'm not gonna, no. Today, I had too much here. Today, the average CEO makes more money in 3 hours than a person making a base wage makes all year long.
Not fair.
Come on, not fair. Each year for the past decade, some 20,000 workers have been fired for talking about unionizing. It's still a very real issue, and rates of union membership keep going down. Now, let me say, somebody said to me a couple of weeks ago after I preached my first sermon, Kelly, we just can't figure out what your politics are. It is true that this amazing country that we live in has so many blessings for so many of us, and that it is built on a matrix of capitalism and white supremacy and patriarchy. It is built on a matrix of capitalism and white supremacy and patriarchy. Now, that doesn't mean, for me to say that, doesn't mean that I'm anti-business. It doesn't mean that I'm anti-man. It does mean that I will fight racism at every turn that I can, that I am anti-whiteness as a construction. But I think it is useful for us as Unitarian Universalists to grab a hold of the ways of that which benefits some at the expense of the many, and how we participate in it. I participate in it. I am blessed by capitalism and white supremacy culture, and in some ways, patriarchy, because I know how to work in that system. It is helpful for us to continue to look at it and continue to try to challenge it. And it doesn't make us bad people if we benefit from it, as long as we are looking at it and challenging it and trying to pull apart the threads of that matrix. You see what I mean? Unitarian Universalists have long been champions of labor, the dignity of every person, the right of every person to live and work in dignity. And suffrage and the labor movement were intertwined. Certainly, the Unitarians and the Universalists had leaders in the suffrage movement. Here's one such story. Fanny Barrier Williams. After moving to the South to teach and experiencing more discrimination than she had faced up north, Fanny Barrier Williams was passionate about working for the rights of African American women. She was an African American woman. She was a Unitarian and one of the first leaders to identify housing segregation and limited employment opportunities as crucial issues for racial justice. Through her many speeches and co-founding of interracial organizations, she championed the rights of African Americans and worked to ensure their recognition and inclusion. From way back in the 1800s up until today, Unitarians and Universalists and Unitarian Universalists have been working for labor rights. In 1997, late 1900s, the Unitarian Universalist Association said this: "We urge our member congregation and individual UUs in the U.S. to work specifically in favor of mechanisms such as reform of labor legislation, employment standards to provide greater protection, and the right to organize and bargain collectively, and protection from unsafe working conditions, and protection from unjust dismissal." When I was sending my photos into Bradley for this, and the way I think about it a little bit in my mind is these sort of labor union, kind of these grainy, old black and white photos, right? That's how I see it in my mind. That's when Mike's family was involved in the labor movement, and those are the stories I heard. But it's right now. It's right now today. At the university, at Iowa State University, graduate workers are organizing. And when they get a union, it will be with the UE, United Electrical. I know, I'm not exactly sure why. I read why, but I can't quite remember it. There's a website, and they have some composite stories, and the names are changed on these, but one woman identified as Cameron says, "When you have people not getting paid enough, it becomes an equity issue. To be able to afford grad school, you either need to come in with the money, with wealth, or you go into debt, or you need to work other jobs." Cameron keeps herself afloat by doing a side hustle here and there. And she says that many people in her program have second or third jobs on top of their teaching assistant responsibilities. Graduate assistants in Cameron's program are offered half-time teaching assistantships, which comes with a funding package that doesn't cover tuition. Half-time assistantships are supposedly 10 hours of work a week. I heard a laugh, right? But she says between planning, lecturing, and grading, the total is much higher. And because of this, she has to take on responsibilities without adequate payment, leaving her overworked and underfunded. "I want to be able to do creative work," she says, "but I can't get there because I can't make the ends meet." She says graduate students get squeezed because their labor is seen as a cost and not an investment. We need to show those in charge that they need to invest in us, and when they do, they are investing in the future of academia. Now, it's complicated to be sure. I'll bet some of you in here could argue the other side of that. And that's where negotiation comes in, and that's important. I think as I'm talking about women in the labor movement, I want to talk specifically about a word or two about Lilly Ledbetter. She's the modern day hero, I think. Just 9 days after taking office, President Obama signs his first piece of legislation. It's the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act of 2009. She had been working at Goodyear for nearly 20 years when she found out that while she was getting paid about $3,700 a month, men doing the exact same job were getting paid as much as $5,200 a month. Ledbetter sued, but she lost when the Supreme Court ruled that she would have had to sue within 180 days of her first paycheck. Not fair. She had no idea, of course, at the time of the pay disparity. In 2009, the Fair Pay Act loosened the time requirement, enabling more victims of pay discrimination to sue for their fair wages. And in 2013, Ledbetter spoke to educators at a National Education Association conference. The teachers that I had in high school inspired me to be the best possible individual and to achieve all the way to the sky. They deserve their union membership. Among this decade's most visible leaders are Liz Shuler, who was recently named the first president of the AFL-CIO, the international president of the Association of Flight Attendants, Sarah Nelson, Crystal Dunn, the vice president and secretary of the U.S. Women's National Team Players Association. Athletes are unionized. And Mary Kay Henry, the leader of the Service Employees International Union, SEIU. I want to close with this story. If I had the photograph of her, it would be one of those grainy black and whites. Rosina Tucker. She played a pivotal role in organizing the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, who were mostly African American men. They had to work up to 400 hours a month with no overtime pay. Their wages came mostly from tips from white passengers. And Rosina's vibrancy is summed up in her words. When she was asked by a young reporter what it was like in her day, she responded, "In my day, this is my day. Today is my day as it is your day. Although I have lived far removed from the time in which I was born, I do not feel that my heart should dwell in the past. It is in the future. While I live, let my life not be in vain. When I depart, may there be a remembrance of me and my life as I have lived it. Today is my day. Today is our day to be organized, to say together no fair, to do the work and join the work that we are called to do. It is an expression of our faith. And the people, united, will never be divided. Blessed be, and may it be so. So we're going to sing Union Made. Please stand as you are able. You won't find it in a hymnal. We've got the lyrics up here. And they may be slightly different lyrics than you learned. This song was used for lots of different things. You may hear, "Look for the Union label when you are buying a dress or blouse." Right? Okay. We're going to sing this. Here we go. She went to the Union Hall when a meeting it was called, and when the Legion boys came round, she always stood her ground. "Oh, you can't scare me, I'm sticking to the Union, I'm sticking to the Union, I'm sticking to the Union. Oh, you can't scare me, I'm sticking to the Union, I'm sticking to the Union till the day I die." This Union maid was wise to the tricks of company spies. She couldn't be fooled by the company's tools. She'd always organize the guys. She always got her way when she struck for better pay. She'd show her card to the National Guard, and this is what she'd say. "Oh, you can't scare me, I'm sticking to the Union, I'm sticking servant of the male elite. It's time to take a stand, working hand in hand. There's stuff that's up to be done, and a fight that's gotta be won. Oh, you can't scare me, I'm sticking to the Union. I'm sticking to the Union. I'm sticking to the Union. Oh, you can't scare me, I'm sticking to the Union. I'm sticking to the Union till the day I die. Thank you, thank you. I want to say just one word about union songs. Today I put on my Pandora Play Union radio. It's not these songs. I thought I might get a little Pete Seeger. No, it was rap and R&B and hip hop. And I thought, that's who union workers are, and they're speaking the language. It was very good. It was very, very good. I was glad for that. Here are some closing words for us. May the light around us guide our footsteps and hold us fast to the best and most righteous that we seek. May the darkness around us nurture our dreams and give us rest so that we may give ourselves to the work of the world. Let us seek to remember the wholeness of our lives. May we have bread and roses, the weaving of light and shadow in this great and astonishing dance in which we move. Blessed be, and may it be so.